So you know what time it is. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's a time for me to bring people on and give them the stage, hand the microphone to them, have them talk about something good. And I could not be more excited, literally, than to have my son, Jake Nudelberg. I got to spend some incredible time with him over the last couple of months, but he is back in Gainesville. As a matter of fact, I believe you just left the practice field, correct?
It feels almost like a post-practice interview for my
And
first.
so let's make this a post-practice interview. Jake Nudelberg, you're on the clock. Tell me something good.
I guess for me at least, it's good to be back in the office. Good to be getting back to some sort of normal. We are back to practicing with the team. And it's fascinating the process that we're going through to make sure we stay healthy. But it doesn't matter, it's kind of our motto, and it's always been our motto. And for the last two staffs I've worked with, football is chaotic. You don't know what's going to happen in a length of a game, in a season, who's going to go down, who's not. And so we're really focusing on just, getting better every day, focusing on the fundamentals and not making a big deal of what's going on. They tell us to wear a mask, they tell us to do this and that, and we do it all. And people put their head down and they go to work, So I think if more people kind of followed that, we'd be in a better position. But that's not a reality in the world.
I love that. So for the sake of the people who might be living under a rock and not know who you are and what you do, give us a little backdrop as to where you are in your life and what you're currently doing.
So for the last 4 years, I've been at the University of Florida, getting a degree in sports management, finishing up my last semester. Yeah, go Gators. Brother is a diehard Knoll, so I like to be on the other side. It adds more. But going into my fifth season with the team, have progressed my way into a pretty good role where, I have responsibilities on a daily basis, get to work with the quarterbacks, running backs, the offense as a whole. So I've been doing that for the past 5 years and excited for this year. Hopefully it happens, obviously.
Yeah, I think we're all hoping that. So you were home for call it 4+ months. I mean, I think you came home in March for a weekend, and then that turned out to be 4 months, 5 months.
It's funny. I saw someone in the office today for the first time because the first day back was Saturday, and not everybody's back. And someone saw me and goes, "Wow, I haven't seen you in so long." I said, "Yeah, it's been 8 months," or I said it's been 5 to 6 months I hadn't seen that person. And they were like, "Wow, it's been that long." I go, "It's been that long." So it's wild that we're here at this point now. But you learned a lot being away from what you do on a daily basis. I think it throws everything in chaos because you're a big schedule guy, which makes me a big schedule guy because that's how I was raised. And the most rewarding thing that's happened is I get a schedule on a daily basis again that says every hour, every minute of every day. And you and Mark talk about it all the time. But I mean, we have it to a science. 7:30 staff, 8 OD meetings with players, 8:30 on the field. So we have 20 minutes built in for the time that we walk over, for the time someone use the bathroom. Every single minute of the day is laid out, and it's really rewarding for me. It allows me to put my head down, not think of distractions, realize what I need to do, and then attack it. Whereas the past 5 months have been la la land, at the most part, it was completely turned upside down and trying to find something to keep busy with. And so it's definitely something that I'm really happy to have back. And I like working, to be honest. I think I missed it. You get accustomed to grinding a certain way. And in football, I mean, we get 3 weeks off the most. So having a 5-month break, I couldn't wait to walk back into the office. It was like the first day of school, and I know you haven't been to school in a while, but like you went through summer and you loved the first 2 months of summer. It was like, oh, great. And then by the last summer, you were like looking at your parents, you're like, kind of ready to go back, I'm kind of ready to see people, get back in the routine. So I think it's definitely the same thing for me, and so happy to be back.
So I love that. I want to steer the conversation on two roads. I would love to get your takeaways from the 5 months of being around me and being exposed to the business. And secondarily, I'd like to know what your experience was watching your brother take over the business, because I know you and him are really tight, and you talk, but you are in the book. We talk about learning to hit a curveball. So I just want to get, if you can, to give our audience some sense of what did that 5 months expose you to that you did not know, and then what was it like watching your brother jump in the pilot seat?
So it's interesting. Even though I've lived with you my entire life, I probably couldn't tell you what you did on a daily basis, right? Is that fair to say?
That's pretty fair.
So
most people didn't know. So
had no idea. Like, what does he do? I don't know. He speaks. But it's really fascinating to see how processes work in different professions. Because the only profession I've really worked in is football, where it's very process driven, very schedule driven, very mindset, and all the things you guys teach and coach. And it's interesting. And me and Mark were talking about this a couple of days ago. The pillars of success don't change no matter what you do in life, and the ability to take those pillars and apply it to the different professions. And that goes into the second part, which you said, and I'll come back to, what I took away from the first 5 months or whatever, living with you back again, was that Mark used the process. Like he is probably the most, other than you, the most process-driven human being I've ever met. I mean, he might be
obsessed.
He's obsessed. Like he's an obsessive human being, and it makes him a successful person. And so it's interesting to see him come from a coaching world where that was all he knew. I mean, he was obviously raised by you and obviously had some base traits to be successful in business, but to have no industry knowledge, to have no background knowledge or have experience to operate in that world, to leave coaching, and it's now a year and a half, to be where he is really eye-opening for the process and buying into the pillars of what makes you successful, because it's going to apply to you in everything. And then I guess relationships is another thing where really was eye-opening, because I mean, the shit hit the fan 5 months ago for everybody, and so for people who had a network that was like this, their options are smaller. To me, your network equals options. It gives you another person to call who leads you to another person. But if you don't connect the first branch, like connect the dots. Like if you don't get to the first dot, you can never get back up to the other dot.
Wow, so that's really well said, man. I'm proud of you. That's awesome.
It's a whole world. Like there's no line to get there. If you don't connect that first dot, you can't get to the second dot. And so I think you saw a lot of people's network and the dots, they don't connect. And so it leaves them dead, leaves them high and dry. And so you speak about what's a successful call. You always tell people, like, what's a successful call to you? And they're like, oh, I make a sale, this and that. Like, what if you just had a good conversation, or if you just made a friend? Or, to me, that made a lot of sense to me, because you're not going to do business with everybody. And if you think you are, you're living in a false world. It's not a reality. Like you're not going to be friends with everybody. Like there's going to be people who don't vibe with you. But the ability to just have good conversations and relationships will take you very far. So that was definitely another big takeaway. And I guess another one would be coaching lives in every world. I saw a quote that the best athletes in the world have their own personal coaches. I follow a very predominant basketball trainer who's out of New York. And Carmelo Anthony is in there every single day with him. Every day he's not training at the facility, he's getting better with his own personal coach. And I mean, Carmelo Anthony could not work out if he didn't want to, I mean, he's gotten to that point. And so the ability to, almost like the humbleness to be allowed to be coached, I think a lot of people see coaching as it's like, oh, wow, I'm getting coached. Like that means I made a mistake, and that hurts people. That's why people are hard to get coached, I think, because they're like, wow, I made a mistake. They're hard on themselves. And so someone else telling them is like piling on, So I think the ability to be humble enough to get coached and realize that you're not going to know everything at all times. It's just not reality. Your brains aren't big enough to hold the information to know everything. And that there are people out there who just want to give you information. They're not trying to tell you, oh, you're awful, you're bad. Like that's not coaching. It's, hey, look, I see it a different way. This is how I would do it. It might work for you, it might not. And that's another thing I love about coaching is it's tailored to every individual person. Every individual takes it a different way. And so watching you maneuver the waters throughout a day process, speaking to different people, speaking to them in a different manner is interesting, because you don't coach everybody the same in football. The coach who coaches everybody the same doesn't have a lot of successful players or players who don't want to play for them, because each player requires its own, tailored approach. And so I think it's being yourself in the process, but also being willing to, open yourself up and be different for other people is rewarding.
You blow me away. I mean, you have wisdom way beyond your years, because a couple of the nuggets that you talked about, the normal inclination, and there's no normal, but often people feel attacked when someone's when they're talking about coaching, and that's generally weaker people, people who are just afraid of getting better or have not committed to what it takes to get better. So for you, I absolutely adore that you pulled that out, that the best of the best have a hunger to get better, and the only way to do that is to allow outside people in.
So also a self-confidence. I think to trust in your ability enough to know that, all right, I've gotten to a place where I'm good. Now I know that I'm comfortable in myself to take it, so I can go to the higher level.
It's that for sure. And then coaching people is something that is unique. It's unique to that relationship. It's unique to how they want to be coached, how they learn. People learn all different ways and actually react to different styles. Yelling and screaming is going to work for somebody. It's not going to work for somebody else. And figuring that out and understanding that everybody is unique in their own way is fabulous. So I think, I'm so blown away by your takeaway. To go back to the original question, what's the major takeaway that you have from the 5 months? Is there one? And then I want to talk about what's going on in Gainesville and all the precautions and the stuff that you shared with me, that I think is just great information for people to know.
Yeah. Biggest takeaway. So there's a few, especially in the last 5 months, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows for everybody. And for me, it was don't panic. It was big of don't worry about everything you can't control. And it really goes back to what we're doing in football. We can't control what the cases are today, or the deaths that are happening, or anything else. The walls can be coming down, but you still have a job to do. And you do it at a very high level. It's not worrying about everything else you can't control. Especially in times that are hard. It's easy to say that when times are easy because you don't have a million things in your mind. The ability to compartmentalize everything and know what's important, I think that was really valuable to me, because I never been through tough times. You know what I mean? I saw tough times live in action and saw people work through it. And there's no substitute for the work. Just do it and trust the work, trust that you're going to get to the end result, because you don't even really know what the end result is going to be sometimes. The end result is very different sometimes when you're along that path. You set that goal, but you're along the path, it's going to move. It's not a stationary goalpost. You're moving a moving target a lot, and it's going to change, But going back to, if it's the pillars that you believe in, you do things with a certain process, it does not matter what's going on around you. It does not matter. It just doesn't.
But before we shift gears and talk about what's happening in Gainesville, I do want you to comment if you can, because in the book, your brother wrote the foreword, but I asked you to share a very specific quote that I think has impacted your whole life. You keep going back to it. So if you're okay sharing that with us, what is the quote? What does it mean?
No, so being a young kid, dealing with family issues, very, limited life experience and knowledge. I didn't know how to deal with the ups and downs of life, and you being a sports addict, and you saw a quote, I guess, or had known this quote that really resonated with me. And it was, life is all about learning how to hit the curveballs. And you told me a story, which I'll never forget, is you playing baseball, and everyone's throwing fastballs through the 5th grade, or forget the detail. But then you like get to like the bigger league and you catch your first curveball and it goes up and down and you like 3 straight, strikes and out. And you were like, I can't play anymore. I don't know how to hit curveballs.
Going back to the dugout, going, what the fuck was that?
I don't know. How am I supposed to hit that? And really, for like a 6-year-old, like it was a really funny story. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, oh, the target's moving and the ball's moving. And so every little event that's happened in my life is just call them curveballs, And if you don't hit the curveballs, you're not going to play baseball. If you don't hit the curveballs in life, you're not going to be successful or move on in life. You're going to fold. And so you were very, open, and we were very open dialogue throughout my entire life. And so it helped me deal with issues along the way and also made me grow up earlier, which was obviously remarkable. I'm super happy that it happened. But yeah, it's just every little thing and every day is going to be a curveball. Like I'm moving right now in the middle of camp. We have 2 days and I'm running back and forth when I get an extra hour to move some stuff in a car. Whatever. Okay. We're back to work though. So curveballs, just learn to hit them and everything will be all right.
Absolutely brilliant. And I've seen you live it and do it. And you make me proud every day.
It's going to be my next tattoo. So.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So as it pertains to what's happening in Gainesville, you've been back 2 weeks, but you shared with me that there are really protocols in place that would surprise some people. So
we are completely out of our facility. Our facility, we have turned conference rooms into our new facility. So we are no longer meet as a staff in a closed staff room where we sit together. We meet in a big ballroom where everybody's spread out. You wear a mask at all times. The players have new meeting rooms, new locker rooms where they have aerated places. You have to wash your hands before you can grab everything. The trainers are wearing gloves and spraying water so you don't touch the water, don't get your mouth near it. But we haven't complained, because we came from non-mandatory workouts a week ago. So Friday started mandatory workouts. I haven't heard one player complain. We're walking extra distance. We're doing different things. It's harder. It's different. And nobody has complained, and you look around society, everyone complains when things change, like change sucks. And so we've just completely taken it out and said, look, this is what we have to do to play football. If we want to play football, this is what you have to do. Okay, it's pretty simple. Cool. Wear a mask and do the whole thing. But at practice, everybody's wearing masks and face shields. It's wild. You
said they're spraying the football. Is that right?
In between drills, so a player catches a ball, gives it to an equipment guy. They're immediately spraying it down with some disinfectant that doesn't mess up with the leather. It really is wild. And we have all designer masks, which is cool. At least, we get the perks of being a Gator. Just dealing with the new normal. I don't have the answer of whether we're going to play football this year, unfortunately.
I was going to ask you. I was coming.
It's we don't know like the rest of the world. We aren't in charge of making that decision, so it's a wait and see. But it's out of our control, and just control what we can control.
But players and coaches and everybody's eager to do that. It's obviously what you're working.
Everyone's ready to play. Everyone's been tested. I wish I knew the exact testing protocol. I got my test back 2 days ago. It was negative, so that's more good news. But yeah, we had, a couple positives, and I was talking to a few players about it. No one was overly sick or anything. It's just, taking the right precautions. We're educating them on what to do when they're outside the facility, decisions to make, places to go. So,
which when you really zero in, that's the role of college football coaches, is to teach these guys how to be men. Right. And so I think, while it's an awful experience, they're going to be better because of it. I really
100%. 100%. Yeah.
So in our last minute here, because I know that you're crazy busy moving and doing, what would you want to share with the audience that is something good, something to take away, something they should be thinking about, anything like that to bring us home?
Something good. I don't know. I want to use my platform for what I believe in. Don't be so selfish in your decisions for others. It might affect your life a little bit, but just do it for the good of others. and being able to be selfless enough to do it and not care that it affects your life in a little bit. If it takes you 20 minutes to wear a mask in a supermarket, wear the mask, clean your hands, keep people safe. If it saves one person, I think it's valuable. So it just do what's right for society and don't be so selfish and realize that everything falls around you because it doesn't. The world's a very large place, and the more we buy in, the better it is for everyone else.
Love it, love it, love it. So closing the gap, people want to follow you. Best place to follow you is where?
I'm on all the social media sites, either Jake Nudelberg, Jake Noodle, or Jake Noodle, Jake Nudelberg, Coach J Noodle. Find me. I'm pretty active on most social media sites, getting better on LinkedIn per my father. But yeah, you can follow me. I'm on every single one.
Yeah, you seem to be a good Twitter guy. I
love Twitter. Twitter is probably the best for college football because you're just dealing with college football kids and reporters and all that. So.
And I like following you, and I like following P. Ryan because I know your relationship with P. Ryan, and he's hilarious, man. He posts.
He just reported to the Jets, so he's on your squad.
Go Gators and go Jets, man. Life will be good come the fall. I miss you, but I'm really happy you're back in what you love to do, doing it well. Thanks for spending a few minutes sharing. This is a treat for me to have you on and own the spotlight because you are the future, my boy. I love you.
I love you too.
Be good. See you.